Beautiful day, Patriots. How are you? Today is day 57. It's April 26th. And I was listening to, guess who? Mike from Around the World from a show that was, let's see, 6 years ago? I believe so, 6.5 years ago. And what is amazing about this particular one that I was listening to today was that he was talking about a phenomenon that would be coming in the future. And last week I saw a video. I'm not saying it's here, it's happened, or anything like that. It was just the first time I've seen it. The phenomenon happened over Japan. And Mike from Around the World, I've been listening to him for just years. And so many of the things that he talked about back in the past have come true. Some are still being waited on. But one of the things that's being waited on, like I say, has just happened over Japan this week. They'll always have an excuse for everything. The show that I was listening to is entitled Brainwaves. And I can remember, I listened to a lot of his shows. I listened to a lot of his archives, and I've listened to his live shows. I try to catch his live shows. And I've listened to him long enough to see and hear him say things that, let's say, may not come true. But then again, just like all things, maybe there's just not enough time. Excuse me. Before, in between what he said and the event. These things happen a lot with a lot of prophets. Excuse me. And I'm not claiming that he's a prophet. I'm just saying that a lot of the things that he talks about, especially back then, let's see, that was 2015. Boy, oh boy, if you wouldn't, I can remember those years quite well. Who wouldn't? It's only a few years, 6 years, 7 years ago. But the subjects that he was talking about, when you talked about that openly in the public, boy, oh boy, you were mocked and really, really looked at funny. And yet here we are now seeing the signs of these things. Mike also had talked about COVID a few months, maybe 4 months ahead of anybody else, ahead of the government, ahead of, YouTube, ahead of a lot of things. And what he was talking about today, or one of the things that he was talking about was when you plant a seed. Like I say, I'm stealing this quote from him. But when you plant a seed, are you always guaranteed to know what that seed is? Of course, I'm ad-libbing also. I'm using his concept that comes from the Bible. So when you plant a seed, do you know what it is, or do you have to wait sometimes until that tree is completely grown, maybe even decades, or let's say even a decade, before you can be guaranteed that it's even going to produce fruit? Just because a seed plant comes out of the ground, that doesn't guarantee that it's whatever you thought you planted. Sometimes it's weeds that come up before the seed that you planted. Have you ever taken or seen where you are doing your garden and you've pulled out a bunch of weeds and you throw those weeds over into the weed pile, compost or whatever in the corner? And you come back, I don't know, a couple weeks later, You're like, oh my goodness, look at that. That tomato plant was within all those weeds, and that tomato plant still survived. But at the time, you didn't realize it was a tomato plant in there. You have to wait sometimes. So I wonder if that's the same within your own life. Miracles happen and things can change overnight. I'm living proof of that in many different ways. I've shared a few of those stories that are relevant right now. We're talking about the other way. I've talked a few stories about that also, where the Holy Ghost comes into your life and Jesus is part of this revelation in your grace and forgiveness. And yet there's still life in these life problems and the life struggles and the life. The same person is still there just because you've been given a gift, they say, you know. So does it take a long time or a short time, or does it take a while for the seed that's been planted within you to develop, to become what it is? Let's say if a seed needs water, what if the seed gets too much water at the beginning? It would drown the seed, right? I mean, as a seedling, then you say, let's say you put a gallon of water on a seedling every day. You're going to drown it. But in 5 years, if you try to put a 1 gallon of water on an apple tree after it's grown up, it's not nearly enough water. So it's going to, what? Starve. Dehydrate. Die. So different parts and times in our life, different requirements of the same lesson even may be required. We know we go through the same lessons till we finally get it, right? I mean, you know, after a while we're like, oh man, I'm not going to do that no more. Sometimes we get to learn it from others, you know, or sometimes, like I said, we can learn it one time. But a lot of us have most likely these situations that just keep occurring over and over and over in our lives, and it's easy to blame others for those scenarios and those type of things, when really it's all within ourselves. Jesus, I got a little sidetracked. I'm painting and then trying to tie this up. I looked at the time. But if you are a seed and there's been a seed planted within you, there's going to be many seasons that occur until you produce fruit. And those seasons can be very rough sometimes. Like I say, there's some years where there's a lot of rain and some years where there's little rain. And if you're planted at the wrong time, maybe it could be very difficult to be one of the strong ones to survive in a grove or a farm or a garden. Garden of Eden. So let nature take its course. Observe your seasons. Observe your growth pattern. Just because you know you're an apple tree, others might not necessarily see that you're an apple. They might see you as a weed still. Don't ever let the devil win and see yourself as a weed. You're absolutely necessary in God's plan, otherwise He wouldn't have made you. And, well, our time has come. I will see you tomorrow on the 88 Step Program. All glory to Jesus. May you have a wonderful week. We have a big, big week for me personally. I'll talk to you soon. God bless you.